it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Thursday, August 15, still in Spain, pre-recording this a little bit earlier. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching this. You're watching it live, but I am pre-recording it earlier on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. The good news is I'll be back in Montreal next week, and I very much look forward to that. At the same time, this is a pretty nice spot, I have to tell you. Special thanks once again to all of you for watching. Special thanks to Shane Gaumont and Master Control, who's taking care of everything. And the Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also brought to you in part by La Bittt Tibi. They had launched their new Ultra Lager. It's a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the hot summer days. Only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can. Available in a pack of 6 to 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and ultra refreshing. Also brought to you in part by Playground. Discover a world of luxury at Playground. Explore their 30,000 square foot expansion with thrilling games, gourmet dining, and live entertainment located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground experience this trip without the trip. I think people are very much going to enjoy this podcast tonight because it's been a while since I've had a chance to speak with this gentleman on the podcast. And of course, I'm talking about Brian Wilde from Global TV Montreal. Brian, call of the Wild. How are you?
I'm very well. It's been far, far too long, Tony. Far too long. Great to talk to you. And how is Gibraltar?
Yeah, it's. I told Craig Button yesterday. Look, I'm not going to say that I've visited every single country in the world, but this is one of the nicest places I've visited in my life. I have to tell you.
They have a rock there.
The rock is here. Our buddy Mitch Garber worked here for the longest time. You realize
worked?
That? Yeah.
No.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, he was CEO or CFO or running the casino here, and then he got transferred. Then after he left Gibraltar, he went to Caesars in Vegas. But our buddy Mitch Garber was he did well for himself over here. Extremely.
What country's flag flies in Gibraltar? To ask a stupid question.
They actually have a
Spain
couple
or
of
England.
Flying. No, they have Great Britain, and they have the flag of Gibraltar.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
But, I believe there's even another one, but I've never been very good with geography, even though I went on a great tour guide yesterday, an amazing tour guide. But yeah, it's actually there's going back the last 300-400 years, there's been a fight between Spain and Great Britain as to who basically owns Gibraltar. And it's British, but there's a little bit of a controversy because the Spaniards say that Gibraltar is Spanish, and those who live in Gibraltar say that it is not, that it is British. As a matter of fact, after Spain won the Euro, one of their players went on the mic during the celebrations and said, Gibraltar is Spanish.
Are you kidding me? Oh, my God.
There's been quite, it's actually,
wow.
It's actually flipped hands on a couple of occasions. And so right now it is a British colony.
And the language spoken is always English, Tony?
The language spoken here is English. There's a lot of Spanish as well,
really?
But everywhere you go in Gibraltar, it's English. There's English pubs. There's fish and chips. They're showing or they will be this weekend showing the Premier League games everywhere you go in all the pubs. It says drop by. The Premier League games will be going on, and they're showing them. So, Yeah. No, there's a lot of English influence here. There's a lot of people who left London to come here to work. And I believe there's 15,000 people from Spain going to Gibraltar every day to work as well. There's about 34,000 people that live in Gibraltar, but there's just as many tourists daily.
Wow.
I don't know about the winter months, but in the summer, population of 33 or 34,000 with another 30 to 35,000 actually visiting on vacation.
Fun. I appreciate the history lesson. I hope everybody does. I'm fascinated by it.
It's really beautiful. I'm telling you, Brian, one day you got to get yourself out here, and you really do. It's that beautiful, and I suggest you go to Spain and you do the whole Costa del Sol, and you do Malaga, and you do Marbella, Puerto Banú, Estepona.
You're living the good life, huh?
A few, and then make your way up to Gibraltar. No, it's been good. I can't complain. Life has been pretty good, but
and congratulations on how life has been so good for you.
Thank you. But
that's amazing. That's amazing, my friend.
Like you, I know how hard I've worked at it. So
that's amazing, my friend.
Thank you. And the first 10, 12, 13 years, there wasn't a lot of money that was being made.
Right, for sure.
And if you calculated what you made per hour for the amount of hours that you put in, you would have, you would have been driving yourself crazy if you calculated.
You and Louis Jean are now the only two that I think have ever transitioned from one market to the other and increased their standing by such a significant amount.
Yeah, thank you, Louis. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so look, a couple of days ago, there's a lot we're going to talk about. A couple of days ago, Serge Savard had a golf tournament at his golf club, Le Mirage, where he honored the Canadiens teams of the 70s, 76 to 79, notably. So 75 to 79, 75, 76, 76, 77, 77, 78, 78, 79, that won those 4 Stanley Cups. And there were about, I believe, 13 or 14 players present from those cup teams. And as we know, we've lost Michel Bonny-Larocque and Guy Lafleur, unfortunately, way too young. But it was, Serge Savard spoke, Ken Dryden spoke, and they had a lot of interesting things to say about the team and one Montreal Canadiens, or a former Hab in particular. We'll talk about that. ESPN came out with their fantasy predictions for pretty much every player in the National Hockey League, and they have some interesting predictions in regards to Montreal Canadiens players. But without further ado, let's go to first a clip from Serge Savard and then a clip from Ken Dryden regarding should Carey Price's jersey be retired.
Sûrement, ça c'est pas une décision du peuple. Là, actuellement, les chandails retirés, ça a toujours été une décision de l'organisation. Moi, quand je suis arrivé là, je me rappelle, on a retiré des chandails qui n'avaient pas été retirés, les Doug Harvey, les affaires. On a retiré des chandails là, qui n'avaient pas été retirés. Puis c'est sûr que lui, Price, avec la carrière qu'il a, c'est sûr que c'est un candidat pour ça, dépendamment de ce que la direction, même s'ils n'ont jamais gagné la Coupe Stanley, il reste qu'il a été un gardien hors pair. D'ailleurs, vous allez voir un cadre ce soir là, où que j'ai encadré. On a un cadre qui a le Big Three depuis plusieurs années, mais cette année, on a encadré une décennie là, de gardiens de but là, qui est Dryden, Price et Roy. On va voir ça ce soir. C'est ça, on va voir ça ce soir.
I won't say so. I won't say anything because that's somebody else's decision. But I think the answer is pretty clear.
Why? We know, but from you, why is the answer obvious?
Because he was a really, really good goalie.
All right, there you have it. Serge Savard, I'll just translate for a second here. He said, look, it's not a decision that belongs to the public. It's a decision, obviously, that belongs to the organization. He said when he was there as a general manager, he ended up retiring a couple of jerseys that had never been retired before that, and Doug Harvey's was one of them. And then he said, look, he never won the Stanley Cup, but he was a really, really unique goaltender. It was a really good goaltender. And he says, as a matter of fact, he said at the event a couple of days ago, He said, usually we have a frame of the big three, Savard, Robinson, and Lapointe. He said, well, we're going to have a frame of goalies of the last, goalies of the last century for the Canadians. And in that frame, there will be Patrick Waugh, Ken Dryden, and Carey Price. Ken Dryden says, I think it's not up to me to answer it, but I think the answer is pretty clear. Brian Wilde, should the Montreal Canadiens retire Carey Price's jersey? Yes.
Well, yeah, I haven't been on in a while, so I might as well get right to not being a fan favorite right away, Tony. I don't think he merits a jersey retirement. He had an outstanding career with the Canadiens, but for the most part, I think when you assess it at the end of the day, it is a longevity career. And so if we're retiring jerseys for longevity, then the Canadiens, I think, change the way they look at retirements, because you could also retire Saku Koivu for longevity. You could retire a lot of excellent Montreal Canadian hockey players for putting in a lot of years. And he was an excellent goaltender, but when you look at the awards, the standard for the Canadiens has always been cups or excellence in terms of trophies won, like Doug Harvey, best defenseman year after year after year. Carey Price was excellent, but at the end of the day, he has one Vezina and he has one Hart Trophy and a lot of wins. But a lot of wins is once again being that the goalie was chosen to be in the net as the number one on the organization. It doesn't say that he was excellent year after year after year in the NHL to merit a retirement. But it all depends, as was said by Serge very well, on what the organization thinks at the time. So now we're talking about Hughes and Gorton and Molson, and it's all up to them and how they want to view it. Do they want a special night for him? They want him to be feted, then they'll do it. But that doesn't mean that in everybody's mind, when they have their own opinion, that he deserved it. And for me, I think the standard of the Canadiens is cups or many, many years of trophies, and he has only one of each and no cups. And that's simply, for me, not enough.
It's your answer is probably not going to be a popular answer with the fan base, but like you said, you're not the president of any fan club, and you're not talking like a fan. You're talking as an analyst and as an observer. And I'm going to tell you this: I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't want to offend anybody either. By all means, I don't want to offend Carey Price, so I'm going to get it out of the way and say it right now. A 15-year career with a goals against average of about 251 and a save percentage of 917 or whatever it was, and one Stanley Cup final and a Hart and a Vezina is a very, very good NHL career. It's a very admirable career. Technically, he's one of the best goaltenders I've ever seen in my life, but you don't get your jersey retired because you're the best technical player in one respect or one aspect. In other organizations, his jersey is retired. In the standard the Montreal Canadiens have set, they cannot retire his jersey. There's way too many players who have had to wait the longest time, some of who were on a lot of Stanley Cup winning teams who never had their jersey retired. I'm not dumb. I realize that if Carey Price would have played for the Tampa Bay Lightning, that he probably would have had a couple of cups. And if he would have played with Sid the Kid and Malkin, he probably would have had a couple. And if he would have played on the Chicago teams, he probably would have had a couple. But it is what it is. He played with the Canadiens. As unfair as it is for one player to put up a team on his back and try and win that cup, sometimes you have to do it the way Roy did it twice in Montreal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, if you look at it from the point of view of like the standard that other teams, like I always find it's a great example that in Edmonton, Al Hamilton's number is retired. Like in the rest of the world, who's Al Hamilton? Yeah. Like, I mean, there's no definitive answer here. It's all about the standard that an organization wants to set for that moment. And so in Edmonton, when they had nobody and, the prime and all of the guys for the cups, and they felt that they wanted to have a night. I mean, because it's just an individual's decision. So maybe like Jeff Molson could be listening to the two of us right now and think we're crazy that he put in his good, decade and a half, and he was always the go-to guy. And so maybe they think it on those terms. And if somebody's younger, I think maybe they may think on those terms too, because they, they really weren't a part of, let's say, the Patrick Roy era or the Ken Dryden era, or, like all of the cup winners that don't have their numbers retired that were part of the, the more than 20 Stanley Cups that this organization has had, that they were maybe integral parts of those Stanley Cups, but nobody even considered them for a Stanley Cup, for a number retirement. And their numbers are outstanding. But they were just, middle players in an overall team effort. So, there is no right or wrong answer. There's just what instinctively you feel about it. And I think instinctively we agree that the standard just isn't high enough for the Montreal Canadiens.
No, I don't think it is. And look, once again, he went to that Stanley Cup final versus Tampa. I think if he wins the Stanley Cup, everyone would have realized that he would have done it against a team that was superior to the Canadiens. And I think it would have been enough to have his jersey retired at that point. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. And yes, once again, I think that if Price is in goal for Tampa and Vasilevsky, as good as he was in goal for the Canadiens, I think Tampa Bay still would have won the Stanley Cup and Price would have been on that cup-winning team. But, it's really hard. Connor McDavid. Let's talk about him. So someone's going to say, so you're telling me that Connor McDavid shouldn't have his jersey retired if he doesn't win a Stanley Cup? You just said it. A Stanley Cup or winning individual trophies on numerous occasions. I mean, Connor McDavid is the best player in the National Hockey League. It's not even close. And he does it year after year after year after year. And if it is close at any point, he's always in that top three discussion with Kucherov and with Nathan McKinnon. I mean, he's there. Carey Price had a long career, but it was a career of a lot of ups and downs, I found. There were some bad years. There were some bad playoffs. There were some no playoffs. There were some good years. There were some great years. And yes, in the middle of that was sprinkled a lot of bad luck and a couple of injury-plagued seasons. But he didn't even though he went to the Stanley Cup final, I know it's going to be hard for a lot of people to hear, but I'll say it anyway. Even though he went to the Stanley Cup final, during his time as a Montreal Canadian, he did not put in the best performances in the playoffs of every goalie that has played here. Halak's performances in 2010, albeit they got eliminated in the semis, were superior. I don't know if you agree with that.
Well, what I'll say is that he often had a 940 for 2 or 3 rounds, but then ran into a bad round. Like, for example, when they took the Lightning all the way to the Stanley Cup final there, he was 940 for 3 rounds. But his final round, I believe, and I don't have the number in front of me, but it was around 870, 880. He had a bad last round. And then the year they went so far and ultimately lost to the New York Rangers, he also was doing well and then got injured. So he ran into some bad luck as well, as they had to go with Dustin Tokarski, if you can believe it, trying to win the cup that year. And then there was another year that he had 2 solid, strong rounds and then had a tough third round. But, overall, I don't want to disparage how he was as a goaltender overall. He was excellent. His numbers are excellent. He put in 360-ish wins. It was, a great career. But I think the most salient point is the one you just made over Connor McDavid. Yes, we're not saying it's you have to have a cup and you have to have lots of trophies. You don't have to have a cup, but you've got to have, year after year, Doug Harvey style trophies, Connor McDavid style trophies. It's got to be one or the other. It can't be never got a cup, only had 1 trophy year. It's just not enough. There are a lot of players that went to a final, had a 1 trophy year, like Josie Theodore, and didn't then get a lot of trophy years or win a cup. And we can say that about hundreds and hundreds of players, Tony, in the NHL that went to finals, had a 1 trophy year and didn't get a cup. And in many instances, their numbers are not retired. Most instances.
If Ray Bork doesn't demand a trade to a cup contender and he doesn't get traded to Colorado and they don't win the Stanley, and he doesn't win the Stanley Cup, he still would have his jersey retired in Boston and even in Montreal. Why? Because I think he's won the 2nd most Norris trophies in the history of the league. I could be wrong on that, but I believe he's number 2 only to Nicholas Lidstrom. So I totally agree with your point. And for those who are going to be watching and those who are going to be listening, by no means, so please don't even go there with a comment or a message or because I'll be offended if you do, say that Brian Wilde and or Tony Marinaro were crapping on Carey Price.
No.
One of the greatest, he was one of the best goalies in the league in the 15 years that he played, and his 15-year career with a 251 goals against and a 917 save percentage and a Stanley Cup final in 1 year where he won 4 individual trophies, in my opinion, is Hockey Hall of Fame worthy. I'm inducting him into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Make no mistake here. I'm inducting him into the Hockey Hall of Fame. But the Canadians have set a standard for retiring jerseys that, as Brian said, you have to be a Stanley Cup winner and or, a multiple individual award winner. As a matter of fact, I've never really dissected it more than that, Brian. But I would imagine every single jersey they retired won Stanley Cups.
Or had trophy-filled careers. But I mean, back in the day when there were only 6 teams, it was pretty easy to win a cup. And that's why the standard now, I think, has changed in terms of it would only take 1 cup. Like back in the day when they were winning them like no one else was allowed, if you won 1 cup, it was like, there's no way you were getting your number retired. They all won 1 cup. But now it would only take 1 cup, like with so many teams in the National Hockey League. It would be a moment that would live in history in Montreal. I mean, even for Canada, it's been since 1993. It would be a massive moment. So the standard has changed. But I think what this discussion is all about, and that's why it will be annoying to see comments that, maybe we were, hard on him or saying that he didn't deserve it. We're only talking about the standard of the Montreal Canadiens. That's the salient point here. And the standard of the Montreal Canadiens for retiring jerseys is higher than the standard that other teams have for retiring jerseys. And there's a very simple reason, because they've been doing this almost 120 years. And if they retired everybody that had it over those 120 years, Carey Price type careers, there would be no numbers left. There'd have to be 3 digits on the uniforms practically. That's how great this franchise has been.
Yeah. He gets his jersey retired in any other city. Any other city. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. But Montreal has a higher standard because Montreal has seen more greatness. By the way, let's take a look at some Montreal Canadiens players whose jerseys were never retired.
Oh, that's good.
Steve Shutt and Jacques Lemaire.
Yeah. Jacques Lemaire. Without Jacques Lemaire, they don't win cups.
I mean, 2/3 of the Habs' number 1 line in those cup wins.
Wow.
From 75 to 79. With Lafleur being the winger on that line.
Yeah.
I mean, the career they had, Jacques Lemaire at the time was known as, a top 3 200-foot player in all of hockey. He never had his jersey retired.
That might be the best argument yet, in terms of give me some examples when you look at, because in the end, it's all about deserve, not deserve, right? I mean, and deserve, not deserve is all about comparisons. You can't do deserve, not deserve unless you start comparing. And when you compare that, without Jacques Lemaire, they don't win those cups.
Do you know how
those games were close enough that they needed that defensive type of centerman who could dominate games? Like, people forget or weren't born early enough. But I mean, Jacques Lemaire was, like essentially Patrice Bergeron out there. He was Anze Kopitar. Without him, who was taking care of the other side? Because Guy Lafleur wasn't taking care of it. And Steve Shutt wasn't taking care of it, but he was such a 2-way, 200-foot guy that he would dominate games in the center of the ice. Brian, and then he taught everybody else how to do it as a coach.
Yeah, off the top of your head, do you know how many cups Lemaire won?
I do not, sir.
8.
Is that right? Wow. See, I mean, come on. And not retired.
So, 69, 71, 73, 76, 77, 78, 79.
Okay, so in a comparison basis, then how are we going to not let Jacques Lemaire have his number retired and Carey Price have his? And Carey Price have his number retired? You understand what we're getting at here?
Yeah,
like, I don't know if we're going to win the argument with anybody, because generally when people have made up their mind on something, they don't change it very often.
Yeah.
But like Jacques Lemaire at 8, and Steve Shutt's probably got a pretty good number too.
But you know what the argument would be, right? A lot of people will be listening right now and they'll be saying, but guys, if Carey Price was the Montreal Canadiens goalie in the 70s, he too would have won 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Sure.
Maybe, but it is what it is. What do you? He wasn't. What do you want to do? You know,
that's it.
That's
it.
You know?
When the if Tony, in an argument is something that actually didn't happen, to me, it's not much of an argument. Like, I mean, if your if is, well, if he was, but he wasn't, like, you know, if I was king, I probably would have been nicer to poor people, but you know, I was never king, so I wasn't given the opportunity to look like a great guy.
Yeah, listen to this, Jacques Lemaire.
If it's useless.
Jacques Lemaire. By the way, this topic is so riveting. I can imagine it's one of those where there's going to be a storm on social media. You can already tell. It's a controversial topic type of thing, right? Because it's like, how can you? And I think we're going to save the ESPN fantasy predictions for a show that we're going to do in a couple of days from now. I think that's what we're going to do, actually.
Okay.
But okay, we might do that this way. You know what?
Well, bring me on, because I've got some big thoughts on that one.
That's what I'm saying. I have another reason to bring you on. That's the whole point. Jacques Lemaire picked up 835 points in 853 regular season games. He picked up 139 points in 145 playoff games. 8 Stanley Cups, never had his jersey retired.
And they haven't had a point per game player this century.
They haven't had a
point per game player
this century. You're right, because the last one was Mats Naslund.
Yeah.
110 points.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, like if Jacques Lemaire can't make it and they haven't had a point per game player this century, a different era, of course, but I mean, there have been a lot of point per game players in the NHL. Like, you know what I mean? Yes, it's a different era and there are fewer goals per game than that era. But at the same time, there are hundreds of point per game players in the NHL this century.
Yeah. Steve Shutt had seasons of 30, 45, 60, 49, 37, 47, 35, 31, and 35 goals. Once again, at one point, he hit 60 goals. That season, he picked up 105 points. Steve Shutt had 424 NHL regular season goals in only 930 games. In the playoffs, he had 98 points in 99 games, 50 of which were goals. This guy's scoring a goal every other game in the playoffs. He won 5 Stanley Cups, and his jersey's not retired.
And once again, this century, there is not a 40 goal scorer on the Montreal Canadiens. And so that makes us compare. And when we compare, you know, these guys deserve what they have not gotten more than Carey Price deserves what he has not gotten.
A shout out to Manta Sleep. It's a sleep mask and a 100% blackout. Not that you're going to pass out. What I'm trying to say is there's no light that will get in whatsoever. You're gonna find you're gonna go into a deep sleep. It's adjustable. It's a personalized fit. It's really, really comfortable. And if you use the code SICKHAPS, you'll get 10% off if you purchase the sleep mask at mantasleep.com. So check it out. It's absolutely fantastic. I've said this before. I have one. My wife has taken it from me, and I'll order another one when I get back to Montreal next week. Brian, 1 or 2 more for you before I let you go. It's been a lot of fun, and time flies when you're having fun. After everything we said, would you, if you were the Canadiens, be a little bit more lenient or actually even correct a few wrongs and start retiring some of those jerseys they have not retired yet?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah,
I would, because it has to be about a standard that's set and then you stay to that standard. So if the standard is cups or trophies, and longevity is the big three. You have to have two of the three, right? And Carey Price has longevity.
Yeah.
Not a trophy case, and not a cup. And the other guys, they do. They've got cups and they've got longevity. And in many instances, they've got point totals that are superior to the last 25 years by a long margin.
Yeah.
And so why haven't they? Like, what did Jacques Lemaire do to anybody? Just go coaching for other teams?
Well, he retired Guy Lafleur a little bit early, but other than that, I mean,
but you know what I'm getting at, though? Like, I mean, Jacques Lemaire's career, come on, you just said it, 8 cups.
The Patrice Bergeron of his time.
Exactly.
Bergeron of his time.
Exactly. He was the first Patrice Bergeron.
He was the first Patrice Bergeron. I think so.
Maybe Jean Beliveau. Jean Beliveau was pretty damn good on both ends, too.
Yeah.
You know, listen to a couple of old guys speak here. But Jacques Lemaire set a standard. Like, young people don't realize the standard that he set. You know, like I didn't grow up a Canadiens fan. But when Jacques Lemaire was on the ice when I was a kid, I just went, the other team's not scoring, man.
Listen, mind you,
they're not scoring.
Serge Savard and Ken Dryden sounded like, there's no doubt Carey Price should have his jersey retired. Look,
why?
If it's good enough,
why do you think that they spoke that way, Tony? I was a little surprised, actually.
Well,
because it's popular and easier.
Well, he was a very, very good goalie for a very, very long time who played on a lot of very
But do you
teams.
think they right, but do you think they think that's the standard to have your number retired? Like, wouldn't they, from where the era they came from, say something like, hey, where's Steve Shutt's chance? Where's Jacques Lemaire's chance?
Well,
that's what I would have expected to come out of their mouths, to say, I played with Jacques Lemaire for a decade, and he was the best two-way center of his era. And he's not retired. Like, why didn't they say that? Seems like something they'd be saying, not us.
So I'll say this. I think Ken Dryden's a very, very diplomatic gentleman. And
that's what I think.
Shape or form would he find himself in any bit of controversy whatsoever.
He doesn't want
that. Serge Savard doesn't hold back. Like
True.
on that same evening, he said he was disappointed. He thought Caulfield was a lot less dangerous last year than he was a couple of years ago. And he, he's taken shots in the past. He says what he thinks and he tells us how he feels. So I think he could have, but yeah, what I would have loved from that night is, okay, you asked them that, no problem. Perfect. Come back now and ask them. But what do you think of the fact that that the Shutt's jersey has never been retired and Lemaire's, and see what they have to say. And I got to say this. The Canadians, they do a lot of right things, man. They're as good an organization in professional sports as you can find. It doesn't mean they're perfect. Nobody is. But I say this to the Canadians. If you're going to fix a couple of wrongs and start doing things right in terms of jersey retirements, and you do retire Steve Shutt's and Jacques Lemaire's jersey, which we both agree should be retired, can you get on with it already? You don't know what life throws your way.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already seen a jersey retirement where the player wasn't there because he passed away. Mm-hmm. It's one of the worst things I think I've ever seen. It's one of the saddest things I think I've ever seen. How many other players as well are actually there, but they've lost a member of their family that they would have loved to share that moment with? Come on, man. It's time.
Or their memory.
Retire Lemaire on one night and retire Shutt on another night, because I don't like when they share it either. By the way, you're sharing the spotlight. I kind of don't like. I think their careers, all these players, their careers were so great, they deserve to be honored by themselves on one particular night.
I agree with you. I hope it happens. They have the careers that warrant it. So with the standard that the team has set for themselves.
So we agree on this, and we agree on this very, very controversial topic where I'm sure everyone has an opinion. But I bet you the next time we're going to talk, and we're going to talk about predictions, and we're going to talk about what we expect in terms of goals, assists, and points from some Montreal Canadiens players, we're probably not always going to be on the same page. So I very much look forward to that conversation, in which we're going to have on an upcoming episode of the Sick Podcast here in the next week. Okay, Brian? So make yourself available the way you did today, because I'm going to call you soon.
Absolutely, I will. I'll be back on the phone.
There you have it. Brian Wilde from Global TV Montreal. We thank him very much. Follow him throughout the season with his terrific Call of the Wild, which is a really great read. Marinaro, once again, special thanks to Energy Transportation Group, to Bittt, to Tibi, to Playground, and to Man to Sleep, and to Shane Gomo and Master Control. Thank him. Thank you for watching the Sick Podcast. Tell your friends about it. I'm Marinaro, born to talk Habs.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.